Imagine waking up in the Dark Ages, a world ruled by dragons, demons, pirates, and ruthless knights. People are starving, kingdoms are collapsing, but one man has a different plan. Instead of becoming the strongest warrior, he starts farming. Then he builds roads, bridges, mines, factories. He recruits an army and turns a forgotten wasteland into the most powerful empire on the continent. Now every kingdom fears him. His enemies wanted a farmer. They accidentally created an emperor. Story kicks off just outside Sage Town, and you can already hear some guy screaming his lungs out. You mudlegs are completely useless. Work all day and you can't even pull weeds properly. The chubby boss is yelling and swinging at people, asking if they're trying to piss him off to death. A whole group of workers are slaving away non-stop like they're nobody's property. Then the chubby boss spots some workers struggling to move a tree stump by its roots, with 3 more guys behind them doing the same thing. He thinks to himself, if that young master sees this mess right now, he'll definitely make me sleep in the pig. Suddenly his eyes go wide and sweat starts dripping down his face. He realizes that's the young master of the Riven Armor family, and ordinary nobles can't even compare to someone like that. The Duke of Riven Armor is one of the 3 Grand Dukes of the Black Iron Kingdom, second only to the king himself. The first-generation Duke followed the Conqueror Emperor to carve out a massive territory, using a longbow as his weapon to pierce through indestructible crimson scales that were as tough as ore walls, slaying a dragon and becoming a legend. Then the chubby boss starts shouting at the workers again, asking if they're eating their 1 meal a day for nothing, and warning them that if the Lord arrives and they still haven't built the house, they shouldn't blame him for being ruthless. He's completely out of breath, thinking to himself that this godforsaken place hasn't had a lord for over 10 years, so how could it suddenly be granted to Lord Roman? Then an idea hits him. Could it be that he was actually exiled? The thought of that man is enough to send fear crawling up his spine. A feudal grant in name, but an exile in reality. He's probably holding onto a stomach full of anger. If he suddenly arrives and sees there's not even a decent place to live, wouldn't he kill a few people just to vent his frustration? Him being allowed to sleep in the pig pen would already be out of respect for his grandfather. He shouts with all his anger, telling everyone to hurry up and work. Then someone shouts that it's the flag of the Riven Armor family, and another yells that the carriage is here. It's the carriage of the Riven Armor family. The chubby guy starts trembling, saying they're here, it's too fast, and telling everyone to hurry up and work. Then his soul just leaves his body when he realizes they've actually arrived. The carriage is being prepared while the chubby guy kneels down and welcomes the Honorable Lord Roman Riven Armor to Sage Town. The Lord is getting out of the carriage. The kneeling chubby guy is thinking, how could it be so fast? The notice only came down a few days ago. He's doomed. Then a striking young man steps out with dark brown curls falling over his shoulders and piercing crimson eyes. Moore immediately introduces himself as the agricultural officer in charge of the territory. Roman just gives him a slight nod because he's come here for one reason, to rule this land like his own private kingdom. As he looks over the weed-covered hillside littered with rocks, Roman isn't disappointed at all. The land is flat, vast, and practically perfect for farming. Suddenly, a translucent system panel appears before his eyes. Roman immediately activates his cheat ability, only to discover that the sole feature currently available is called Tale of Life. To unlock the remaining functions, he first has to build his farm. After thinking it over carefully, he names it Origin. He then realizes that the pixelated figures generated by the Noah's Ark system perfectly match the people and terrain around him. Eager to finish the farm as quickly as possible, Roman rolls up his sleeves and, under everyone's horrified gaze, single-handedly hoists a massive log that normally requires several laborers to lift. His etiquette tutor quickly reminds him that such manual labor is beneath a noble, but Roman completely ignores the lecture and keeps working as he pleases, even declaring that he intends to sleep on this empty land tonight. He then turns toward the 2 battle knights assigned to him by House Armorbreaker and orders them to help. When the confused knights remain frozen in place with no intention of work, Roman asks them a brutal question. If they refuse to work, are they planning to sleep in the wilderness tonight? Seeing the murderous looks in the knights' eyes, Moore hurriedly intervenes and suggests that if it pleases them, they could stay in Sage Town tonight. To everyone's surprise, Roman immediately rejects the offer because in his eyes, a medieval town is little more than a pigsty, and sleeping outside would be far more comfortable. But Grimm quietly speaks up and says he doesn't mind. Moore stares blankly at Roman and Grimm, unable to believe that a single offer has somehow convinced a battle knight to betray his own lord. After a moment of silence, Roman coldly replies that Grimm can go, but once he leaves, he shouldn't bother coming back. Grimm can sleep in town if he wants, but only after finishing every last bit of work. Unlike the rebellious Grimm, Aaron has already started clearing the weeds without being told. After putting an end to Grimm's nonsense, Roman turns toward Moore and tells him he may leave but to come back early tomorrow because he has work for him. Moore opens his mouth as if he wants to say something, but ultimately turns and runs. His life may be safe for now, yet his future seems even more uncertain. because this new lord is nothing like a normal noble. The surrounding slaves are equally stunned, feeling as though everything they witnessed today was a dream. Their newly appointed lord actually carried logs alongside them. Although the wooden cabin they eventually build looks ready to collapse, Roman is still satisfied when the system rewards him with 10 points of construction experience. Even though everyone insists that the cabin is worse than a pigsty, Roman moves inside without the slightest hesitation. As for how he ended up here, Roman worked himself to death playing a game called Noah's Ark in his previous life. His soul then entered the body of a noble's illegitimate son, but his cheat system only finished loading after he received his own territory. This world is still trapped in the early medieval era, and the corruption and decadence of its nobles disgust him. Even the prestigious House Armor Breaker is no exception. Rather than join the other nobles in bleeding the common people dry, Roman chose to leave his family and exile himself. To any other noble, the territory he received would be no different from banishment to the edge of the world. But Roman sees this wilderness as undeveloped land filled with limitless possibility. He may have built nothing more than a collapsing cabin, but he knows that the core of Noah's Ark is summoning and developing powerful characters. Although the daily check-in system is already available, the beginner bonus guaranteeing a 6-star character from the first 10 summons is gone. Roman discovers that summoning a single apostle costs 160 primo gems. Since he only has 100, even the summoning banner remains gray and inaccessible. Still, Roman is in no hurry because he has no idea what kind of impact the power of Noah's Ark will have on this world. Early the next morning, while dew still clings to the grass, Moore returns with the same group of slaves from the previous day. When Roman wakes up, he finds Aaron and Grim training on the grass outside his cabin, and he can sense their astonishing power even from a distance. Spring planting determines the entire year's harvest, yet Roman quickly realizes that Sagetown is far more backward than most regions, relying entirely on primitive farming methods and inherited experience. Noticing that his new lord is displeased, Moore hurries over and asks if Roman has any orders. Roman knows that the lingering spring cold is torture for these ragged slaves, so he orders Moore to cook enough wheat porridge to fill 50 bowls. But Moore frowns and explains that one pot can't hold that. Roman can't believe he has to explain something so simple and asks why they don't just cook several pots. After all, he's not cruel enough to force starving slaves to work. Seth, Roman's steward, immediately steps forward to object, saying they probably don't have enough grain for him to display his generosity so freely. But Moore quickly lowers his head and declares he'll bring every last bit of grain stored inside town. Seth feels that Roman has gone too far. Carrying logs yesterday was strange but still understandable, while feeding slaves today openly challenges the rules of this entire era. As far as Seth remembers, Roman has always possessed an arrogance rooted deep in his bone. He rarely shows it, but he seems to look down on everyone around him. At the same time, Roman has been nearly flawless since childhood, excelling in both academics and combat, and standing above most of his siblings. Otherwise, the Grand Duke would never have allowed him to develop a territory of his own. That's precisely why Seth agreed to follow Roman into this wilderness. But something is clearly different now. The arrogance Roman once kept hidden is suddenly pouring out without restraint, as though every chain around him has finally been broken. Seth eventually concludes that Roman has simply stopped pretending now that he's standing on his own land. Roman doesn't care what Seth thinks. He makes the rules. He calls Moore over and gives him 3 tasks. First, deliver every record concerning Sagetown to Seth. Second, he'll assign him 2 clerks, and within 3 days, he wants the population and occupation of every resident in the town and its surrounding villages. Third, if his numbers are significantly different from what Roman uncovers, he'll be eating black bread and sleeping in a pigsty. Moore immediately forces a smile uglier than crying and repeatedly assures Roman that he understands. Only then does Roman pat him on the shoulder and order him to get to work. As Roman watches the agricultural officer, who's as fat as a white pig, hurry back towards Sagetown, he turns to the slaves and orders them to split into groups after eating and start building a latrine and a kitchen, asking if that's clear. When every slave hurriedly nods, Roman smiles in satisfaction. As far as slaves are concerned, any lord who keeps their stomachs full must be the most merciful ruler alive. Roman then finds a suitable patch of grass, picks up a hoe, and begins breaking the soil. His new body is strong and exceptionally well developed, clearly because it received enough high-quality protein from childhood to approach the limits of human genetics. Of course, clearing farmland is far from easy because it requires grueling physical labor. Fortunately, every bit of work rewards him with experience. Roman spends the entire morning tilling roughly 1/6 of an acre without taking a real break. His farming experience rises even faster than his construction experience, making him wonder if he possesses a natural talent for farming. The Tale of Life interface floating before his eyes also updates, and alongside 5 wooden cabins, the system map now displays his newly cultivated field. Roman spends the rest of the morning beside the field planting parsnip seed. The parsnip is a pale root vegetable planted in early spring and harvested before spring ends. During lunch, Grimm finally asks when Roman intends to begin the real work. According to their original plan, they should have gathered the townspeople yesterday and introduced them to the lord who would rule them for the rest of their lives. But Roman remains completely calm. He knows Grimm wants to accomplish something important, but what he's doing right now is important. One day, he'll bring both of them along to accomplish even greater things. Grimm immediately complains, asking if by greater things he means farming with. Roman glances at him and answers with a proud snort, saying Aaron might be passable, but he would be terrible at it. A faint smile briefly appears at the corner of Aaron's mouth, but it vanishes almost instantly as he resumes the silent expression expected of a stoic knight. To everyone's surprise, Roman then hands all the remaining seeds to Aaron. 2 days soon pass, and Roman cultivates nearly an acre of land on the plains north of the cabins, filling it with all kinds of fruits and vegetables. Unfortunately, the rate at which he earns experience gradually begins to decline. Roman suspects that he hasn't yet mastered the knowledge the system implanted in his mind. At that moment, Moore finally returns with the results of his census. He reports that Sige Town has a population of roughly 1,800 to 900 people. Roman immediately smiles and says he thought his territory only had around 700 residents, considering that's the number Moore has always used when paying taxes. The moment Roman finishes speaking, Moore's face turns deathly pale, and every layer of fat on his body trembles as he realizes he may truly be doomed. This time, however, Roman knows that the situation isn't entirely Moore's fault. For years, Grand Duke Armorbreaker has never sent anyone to recount the population, survey the land, or recalculate the territory's taxes. Because the region is so remote and difficult to reach, the tax collectors simply take the required payment and leave, while almost no one pays attention to this impoverished territory. But Roman still asks the most important question: why is there a difference of nearly 100 people in his population estimate? After hearing Moore's explanation, Roman learns that Sige Town was originally founded by runaway slaves. People who could no longer survive in human society fled into this basin, cultivated the land, and formed their own settlement. As the population grew, the region also attracted wanted criminals and military deserters, but Moore commands only 30 guards, making it impossible for him to maintain complete control over the entire area. Sige Town currently has more than 100 slaves, all of whom are included in the total population. Most were purchased from outside the territory and belong to merchants, overseers, and craftsmen, since they're the only residents wealthy enough to afford slaves. Moore owns more slaves than anyone else, with nearly half of them belonging to him. Constant wars between nobles and rival kingdoms have prevented Sige Town's population from growing, while the average resident lives for only 30 to 40 years. But the local farmers enjoy a relatively peaceful life, though the small population and terrible productivity make rapid growth impossible. If Roman can solve the food shortage, the population will naturally begin to rise. After learning the basic situation of Sige Town, Roman sends Moore away to continue work. Another 3 days soon pass. Thanks to the constant construction, the land finally begins to resemble a proper estate instead of a few lonely wooden cabins. Today marks Roman's 7th day in Sige Town. After cultivating more than an acre and a half of land, he finally raises his farming skill to level 2, unlocking basic agricultural knowledge and the ability to improve farming tools. Roman also receives primo gems from several achievements. Combined with the rewards accumulated through his daily check-ins, he now has a total of 1,200 primo gems. Since each summon costs 160, he can draw 7 times. After some consideration, Roman decides to test his luck with 2 summons, because recruiting and developing apostles is the core feature of Noah's Ark. Ripples spread across the gray summoning pool as a fate star shoots upward like a comet flying against the heaven. 2 cards then emerge in succession, glowing with 3-star and 4-star light. But the characters displayed on those cards are none other than Grimm and Aaron. Roman is surprised by the result, yet the more he thinks about it, the more reasonable it seems. He originally imagined that a recruited apostle would fall from the sky, kneel before him, and swear eternal loyalty. Instead, the system simply transforms people already around him into apostles, which is far more realistic. Roman then continues with another summon. A 2nd star radiating white light rises and hovers above the summoning pool. Roman narrows his eyes when an unfamiliar man appears on the card. What troubles him most is that he has no idea where this apostle named Dota might be. Roman thinks about it for a long time but can't find a single clue, so he uses all 4 of his remaining summons. The 4th card reveals his steward, Seth. The 5th shows his personal chef, Bob. The 6th belongs to someone named Telma, and the 7th displays a man named Barlow. Staring at this mixture of familiar and unfamiliar names, Roman becomes completely confused and still can't understand what the system means by recruiting apostles. Unable to reach an answer, Roman decides to visit Sige Town and investigate for himself. To his surprise, Aaron is already dressed in a full suit of gleaming armor and prepared to leave at any moment. Noon, Roman enters Sige Town with his 2 heavily armed battle knights. As they approach the gathered crowd, Roman pulls back on the reins and slows his horse to a walking pace, more hurriedly leads the town's people forward, and everyone bows deeply before their new lord. Looking over the enormous crowd, Roman understands that every person standing before him is now one of his subjects. He sees countless rough and exhausted faces, yet faint sparks of hope remain hidden beneath their lifeless expression. They are both frightened and expectant. Unlike the completely broken peasants outside this territory, these people still possess a trace of vitality. From this alone, Roman can tell that Moore hasn't abused the local farmers too severely. Their lives may be difficult, but they are still able to survive. At that moment, Roman's commanding voice echoes across the open ground. He declares that he is Roman Armorbreak, the new lord of Sige Town, and the man who will rule over them from this day forward. They must understand that every inch of land in this territory now belongs to him. Through their ignorance and foolishness, they have committed unforgivable crimes. Everything here is his property, so he will now exercise his authority as their lord, reclaim all the land and reorganize it. He will no longer allow them to waste his resources. For decades, they have illegally entered his mountains to cut timber, hunt animals, and catch fish. These actions violate noble law, so every one of them must pay a fine of 1 old coin. In this era, farmers have no right to own land. Even free citizens can only rent it from nobles and can never truly claim it as their own. Before coming here, Roman secured 3 years of tax exemption for Sige Town from Grand Duke Armorbreak, giving him complete freedom to overhaul the entire territory. The moment Roman announces his decree, the town's people drop to their knees and beg him for mercy. Some are even tempted to rebel on the spot and overthrow their new lord. But the sharp sound of swords sliding from their scabbards sends everyone stumbling back, terrified that they might be the first person to lose their head. Roman then gives them 2 choices: pay the fine or send every child in their family between the ages of 5 and 15 to his estate. After dealing with the farmers, Roman turns his attention towards Sige Town's licensed merchants. However, he doesn't treat the merchants nearly as harshly. He agrees to overlook all the commercial taxes they evaded in the past. But from this day forward, every business must obey the rules he establishes. A young merchant is the first to step forward and promises to follow every order Roman gives. But he also asks why Roman is focusing on petty thieves while ignoring the true bandits hiding in the mountains. After questioning, Roman learns that the young man is More Perea, the son of a wealthy merchant named Cellini. Roman immediately realizes that this young merchant may prove useful in the future. Still, he maintains his cold and arrogant demeanor, declaring that everyone will be investigated and that no one may use the resources of his territory without paying a price. From now on, anyone who cultivates land without permission will be executed, and every resident must accept Roman's plans without question. Roman is doing this because these people know nothing about properly using the land. Unless he completely transforms their outdated methods of production, Sige Town will never develop. He intends to redistribute the land and resources himself, leaving no one free to act however they please. Moore's heart trembles as he listens, because this is finally the kind of behavior he expects from a true noble. On the journey back to the estate, Grimm gives Roman a strange look, having assumed that Roman would continue feeding and caring for his subjects. But he soon says that still, Roman's decision was extremely wise. If this continued, even they might eventually be unable to afford white bread. After all, Roman is the lord of this land, while they are merely knights in his service. No matter what decision he makes, they will support him without question. Grimm's declaration greatly pleases Roman. Seth, however, believes Roman's decision to take the children into his estate is deeply misguided. Children over the age of 10 already provide basic labor, and removing all of them would have a major impact on Sige Town's productivity. But Roman intends to select the most talented children and train them personally. To completely transform the estate's economy, Roman must first destroy the old system. He plans to centralize every resource and redistribute everything himself, tolerating no waste whatsoever. His ruthless actions today are meant to shatter his subjects' illusion, erase their hope, and break down their psychological defenses, turning them into the ideal sacrifices needed to purchase passage into a new era. Roman also intends to drastically reduce the amount of land being cultivated throughout Sige Town. If every grain of wheat can produce 8 more grains, he can cut the farmland in half. If each grain produces 16, he can abandon 3/4 of the least productive field. The transition will inevitably leave many farmers hungry, but with his current resources, this is the limit of what Roman can accomplish. Sige Town's population may have pleasantly surprised him, but producing more food with the territory's existing resources requires freeing unnecessary labor and concentrating everyone's efforts on intensive farming. To survive the coming winter, Roman's most urgent task is producing enough food. Only by selecting superior seeds and supplying the soil with sufficient nutrients can he push his crops to their genetic limits. Sige Town may possess more than 80 oxen, but they must be shared by the entire population, making it impossible to plow every field in time. In the past, whenever farmers failed to plow a field before planting season, they simply scattered seeds across the soil and left their survival entirely to chance. This resulted in little more than scattered harvest. Instead of wasting labor on barren fields that produce only 2 grains for every seed planted, Roman believes they should abandon them and concentrate everything on the most productive farmland. Meanwhile, large numbers of townspeople surround Moore and beg him to save their children. After being harassed for hours, Moore finally loses his patience and roars at the crowd, declaring that he has absolutely no power to change Lord Roman's decision. He then forces his way through the crowd and storms off in anger. However, several people soon regain their composure. According to their existing lease agreements, they have the right to cultivate rented land as long as they pay their taxes. By forcibly reclaiming that land, Roman is clearly violating the law, and once the matter is reported, the king will surely punish him. Meanwhile, the merchant Moray returns to the docks of Sige Town. Inside a ship anchored near the shore sits a mysterious figure completely concealed beneath a black robe. When Moray enters, Madison slowly raises her head and asks whether he has found the target. Instead, Moray immediately accuses Madison of providing false information because he has searched everywhere for days without finding a single clue. The new Lord's decrees have thrown Sige Town into chaos, and everyone is talking about Roman armor break, making it nearly impossible for Moray to continue investigating. This immediately catches Madison's attention. She asks what exactly that noble did. Moray has no choice but to briefly recount everything that happened that day. After hearing the story, Madison immediately assumes Roman is a depraved noble. He ordered that many children into his estate, and he demanded both boys and girls. The disgusting desires of nobles truly know no limits. But Moray disagrees, saying if he were really targeting children, he wouldn't have waited this many days to announce it. He thinks Roman may be preparing for war or planning something much larger. But as far as Madison knows, Sige Town doesn't have enough food to support that many children. Moray's first impression of Roman was that he acts quickly and decisively, so he firmly believes the new lord is not some useless fool. Madison has no interest in Roman's plans and says she can't continue wasting time. If Moray still can't find her, then she'll search for herself. Afraid of being implicated, Moray hurriedly tries to stop. But Madison replies that the church's influence hasn't reached this place, and no one will ever believe he has any connection to them. The two immediately fall into a heated argument, and this is far from the first time Madison has proposed taking action personally. Moray can only analyze the situation for her, explaining that Miss Amethyst can sense the power of their people, but he's searched every corner of Sige Town without seeing the slightest reaction. She may no longer be in town, and her identity may already have been exposed. If she truly believes the girl is still alive somewhere in this territory, then she can only be hiding deep in the mountains. Madison is no fool. If she really escaped into the mountains, then it's impossible that no information has leaked out. Moray finally reveals his plan. Roman armor breaker is obsessed with controlling everything, so he should find that girl. He deliberately mentioned the people living in the mountains to Roman, because Roman is the only person in Sige Town capable of investigating that region while outsiders like them know nothing about it. But Madison strongly opposes this plan because she doesn't trust nobles and intends to find the child herself before Roman begins his search. Moray tries to stop the stubborn woman by reminding her that the church has issued a death warrant. But finding her missing companion has become Madison's only purpose. Even if it places her in danger again, she refuses to turn back. Moray ultimately tells her that he will wait here for only 2 more days. Whether Madison returns or not, he will leave without her. However, Madison fails to find the answer she wants and instead alarms a large number of Sige Town's residents. Early the next morning, Moore rushes to Roman's estate and reports that a demon appeared in Sige Town during the night. More than a dozen households claim they dreamed of a woman in a black robe, while some residents insist they even saw the demon's face. Aaron concludes that the so-called demon is most likely a witch. On this continent, kings, nobles, and the church form the ruling class. Nobles obey their king, the king submits to the church, yet the church remains deeply wary of the nobility. The church not only controls clergy capable of healing injuries, but also commands a powerful military. Through a combination of faith and force, it collects a tithe equal to 1/10 of every citizen's income. However, the Black Iron Kingdom is the strongest nation on the continent, and its 3 Grand Dukes have never paid this tax. Sige Town is so remote that the church has no presence or missionaries there. Mages are extremely rare in this world, while witches are natural-born spellcasters. The church views witches as disasters and has hunted them relentlessly for years. Most nobles don't care whether witches live or die, while battle knights consider ordinary witches so weak that a single dagger is enough to kill them. Because the incident involves a witch, Moore cautiously asks whether Roman wants to notify the church. Simply reporting her would earn them 10 gold coins, enough to purchase 20 oxen. But no one was injured during the incident, and the mysterious woman appears to be searching for someone. Roman therefore orders Moore to stay out of it. Their immediate priority is mobilizing the townspeople to plant spring wheat. When Roman arrives at the field selected for planting, he once again uses forceful methods, ordering Moore to organize the farmers into shifts to stir large containers of muddy water. The system has already unlocked the knowledge required to select seeds with salt water, but salt is a luxury in this era. Roman must settle for using muddy water to separate the strongest seed. He doesn't explain the principle to Moore, because only undeniable results will convince people this ignorant. Roman plans to sow only the most fertile 330 acres. The remaining 5,000 to 6,000 acres require extensive soil improvement and will be left for now. He intends to complete the spring planting preparations within 20 to 30 days. The farmers must also provide labor for the Lord's estate, and unless Roman raises their crop yields, people will inevitably starve in the future. Finally, Roman orders Moore to recruit 80 peasant women to prepare enough food for every worker. He sets an unusually generous meal allowance, giving each person half a pound of dry rations, 3 slices of bread, oatmeal porridge, and mixed vegetable soup. Roman forbids anyone from stealing or reducing the workers' stew allowance because he intends to eat the exact same meals himself. He also orders the workers to bring out the elderly and children from their homes so the peasant women can care for them. Town currently has roughly 1,200 available labor, and as long as everyone works at full capacity and follows his plan, a completely new order will soon emerge throughout the territory. Since the estate is still in its early development state, Roman summons the 2 clerks currently working at his manor. Their names are Garmin and Hands, and both graduated from a city academy in Grand Duke Armor Breaker's territory. Roman had to offer them salaries far above the normal rate to convince them to come here. Roman now orders the 2 clerks to educate the children living at his estate, but Garmin immediately refuses, saying he came here to become an administrator, not to play babysitter for a group of children. Hands also argues that he expected to accomplish something important in this territory and cannot accept such a ridiculous reassignment. Their open defiance immediately angers Roman. Since Hands understands the law, he insists that he has the right to refuse an unreasonable command. He even threatens to sue Roman in the royal court. Roman merely gives him a cold smile and says he hired both of them at salaries far above the market rate, so don't lecture him about their rights. The money he pays gives him the authority to assign their work. They signed a contract, and now they will fulfill it. He warns them not to question his decisions again, or he will execute. Faced with Roman's undisguised threat, the 2 clerks ultimately submit, resolving the problem of educating the children at the estate. After arranging everything, Roman heads into Town to inspect the ongoing work. The farmers assigned to collect manure have just returned and are lining up to receive lunch. Roman discovers that they gathered more than 10 tons of manure in a single morning. However, meeting even the most basic needs of the farmland will require at least 100 tons of fertilizer. Meanwhile, the farmers are shocked by the quality of the food served for lunch. They are terrified that it might be their final meal before an execution, because a single serving contains enough food to feed their entire family for a day. Only after seeing Roman sit down and eat the same meal do they finally stop worrying. Moore cannot understand how a noble lord can calmly eat his lunch beside a massive pile of manure. When Roman notices him staring, he orders Moore to hurry up and eat because they still need to make compost after working for nearly 2 hours. Roman finally constructs a proper above-ground compost pile. He then seals it with wet mud, allowing the material inside to ferment at a high temperature. Roman tells Moore that all manure must be processed according to these exact steps from now on. Anyone who helps produce the compost will receive roughly 2 pounds of wheat as an additional reward. After arranging the composting work, Roman leaves ahead of the others because he still needs to visit the blacksmith Rex and ask him several questions. But Rex explains that he did not forge most of the farming tools used throughout the town. He produces only a small number of them and mainly survives by repairing old equipment. After hearing Rex's explanation, Roman finally understands the reason. Blacksmithing is extremely difficult to sustain because iron ingots must be purchased from outside the territory, while ordinary farmers cannot afford iron tools. The entire forge currently has only about 220 pounds of iron in storage. Without wasting any more time, Roman takes out a design he prepared in advance and asks how much iron would be required to forge this new plow. Based on his experience, Rex estimates that it will require at least 33 pounds of iron. Roman has no choice but to tell him to reduce the amount of metal wherever possible and complete the iron plow. He emphasizes that the plow is extremely important and orders Rex to summon every carpenter in town so they can finish it as quickly as possible. Anyone with experience can see that this new plow violates the teachings of the church, but Roman has always been an atheist. What truly confuses Roman is that the light plows used in this world can only scratch the surface and are incapable of deep cultivation. The tool seems more like something introduced by an outside force than a natural invention, completely contradicting the normal progression of technology. Roman realizes that this world still contains countless mysteries waiting for him to uncover. Roman's next problem is the territory's severe shortage of iron. Town depends almost entirely on imports for iron ingots and metal blocks. Because it lacks smelting technology, skilled labor, and most important, a source of iron ore. Roman inspects the iron stored by Rex, who admits that he purchases only low-quality ingots costing 1 gold coin for roughly 56 pounds. Roman only needs the iron to satisfy the farmer's basic demand for tools, so he can't afford to be overly picky. But even if they reforge every existing scratch plow, they still lack enough metal to produce 40 heavy plows. Just as Roman considers melting down the knight's equipment, Rex tells him that the merchant ships at the docks currently have iron ingots for sale. The news immediately lifts Roman's spirits, and he rushes straight toward the docks of Sige Town. When Mori sees Roman approaching, he immediately panics, believing the foul-tempered witch has been captured and exposed his involvement. After learning that Roman only wants to purchase iron, Mori finally relaxes. He explains that his final shipment contains nearly 500 pounds of iron ingots, which Roman can purchase for 15 gold coins. Unfortunately, Roman's entire fortune currently amounts to only a little more than 20 gold coins. He therefore removes a brilliant red gemstone from his coat and casually tosses it to Mori. As an experienced merchant, Mori immediately recognizes it as a ruby. This gemstone can strengthen a weak person. A ruby of this quality should be worth at least 15 gold coins. Mori is shocked by Roman's decision, asking if he's certain he wants to trade it. To ordinary humans who have not yet become transcendent, such gemstones are incredibly precious. They nourish the wearer's body, strengthen their physique, and help them enter the transcendent realm more quickly. However, Mori refuses to accept the ruby and offers to exchange the iron for Roman's friendship instead. After thinking for a moment, Roman takes back the gemstone. After all, it was a gift Grand Duke Armorbreaker personally gave him when he was born. But Roman has no habit of accepting favors without repayment, so he promises to compensate Mori in another way. He also asks the merchant to transport 100 oxen to Sige Town for a total price of 60 gold coin. Mori's resources are limited, however, and he can supply no more than 50 oxen and 100 draft horses. With no better option, Roman accepts the deal without even considering whether he can afford it. Roman, Rex, and a carpenter named Vich then each lift a wooden crate containing roughly 165 pounds of iron and carry them back into Sige Town. With this shipment of high-quality ingots, they finally have just enough iron to begin producing the heavy plows. Early the next morning, Roman takes out the giant bow he brought from House Armorbreaker. Its body is as red as blood, while its pure white string is incredibly durable. The bow has a draw weight between 150 and 200 pounds, with a pigeon egg-sized diamond embedded at each end, and every part is made from supernatural material. Yet in Roman's opinion, its penetration is only comparable to a heavy sniper rifle, while its destructive power, range, and accuracy are all inferior. Even so, this remains Roman's most valuable weapon. It is worth at least 100 gold coins and is coveted by countless nobles. Meanwhile, Moore is waiting in Sige Town for Roman's agricultural instructions, only to receive an order to assemble the guards instead. Completely confused, Moore asks why Roman did not warn him in advance, especially when the people living in the mountains are extremely dangerous. But Roman firmly declares that he will not allow anyone to act lawlessly within his territory. Moore has no choice but to obey and selects 20 guards from Sige Town. After preparing enough supplies, the group follows Roman into the mountains. Throughout the journey, Moore repeatedly tries to change Roman's mind, warning that the mountains are filled with desperate outlaws, and there is no reason for him to risk his life personally. His safety is far more important, but Roman suddenly raises his hand and orders the entire group to stop. The system has just informed him that one of the apostles he summoned is hiding nearby. Aaron and Grimm also sense something unusual as several people begin surrounding them under the cover of the forest. Roman immediately shouts into the trees, asking if they intend to make an enemy of their own lord. A voice answers from deep within the forest saying they have no lord. Roman calmly replies that they do now. He tells them they cannot defeat his battle knights and orders them to come out and submit to him, promising to spare their lives. The hidden hunters immediately begin whispering among themselves, clearly divided over whether to accept Roman's demand. After a brief wait, a young hunter emerges from the trees and says they only want a chance to survive. If Roman agrees to leave them in peace, they can offer him a portion of everything they hunt. Roman gives a simple response, swear their loyalty to him. He possesses absolute authority over everything in this territory, and every person living here is one of his subjects. He then demands the hunter's name, calling him his apostle. The young hunter freezes, unable to understand how Roman could possibly know. Eventually, the hunter lowers his head and says his name is Dota. Only then does Roman give a satisfied order, telling Dota to take him to everyone else living in these mountains and not to leave out a single person. He will judge their behavior and decide whether to accept their loyalty. Roman's tone remains uncompromising as he declares that he doesn't even need to use force. All he has to do is block their supplies, and they will have no way to survive. The hunters lack the courage to fight their lord, and they have barely more than a dozen capable fighters. In the end, every hunter is forced to submit. Roman orders them to abandon their mountain settlement and move into Sige town within 1 month. He then questions Dota about the other notorious outlaws hiding in the mountains. Dota holds nothing back. The dirty Dr. Garin is respected by both the hunters and the residents of Sige town. He is highly educated and can cure illnesses, but no one knows where he came from. It is a military deserter who fled the battlefield and came here because he had nowhere else to go. There is also Dick, the traitor knight. He supposedly murdered the noble he once served and is now wanted by the nobility. Finally, there is the great bandit Borg. Roman has probably heard of. He killed a noble, stole the man's entire fortune, and distributed it among the common people. But after Borg left, another noble sent every one of those people to the gallows. Dota warns Roman to avoid Borg because he is extremely dangerous. At that moment, a distant beastly roar echoes from deep within the mountains, interrupting Dota's explanation. Dota stares toward the mountains with a grave expression because the roar clearly came from a monster. Roman remains completely unconcerned and asks if there is anyone else. After a moment of hesitation, Dota reveals the final name, the Witch of Misfortune Gur. Meanwhile, Madison ties a bag of peas beneath the branch of a low chestnut tree. According to the information she received, the person she seeks should appear soon. Madison has no way to confirm whether the information is true, so she can only pray that the clue is reliable. After waiting for a long time, she finally sees a thin figure dressed in filthy rags cautiously approaching. The girl walks carefully toward the chestnut tree, rises onto her toes, and removes the bag of peas. She then looks around cautiously before lowering her head and quickly leaving the area. Madison immediately follows and calls out the girl's name. Hearing her name, Gur jumps in terror and spills all the peas she is carrying. Her dirty face stares fearfully at the beautiful woman standing before her, convinced that Madison has come to capture her. Madison's heart aches as though she is looking at her younger self. She introduces herself and tells Gur not to be afraid because they are companions. She is a witch too. Gur recoils in shock and cries out that she's not a witch, that she doesn't possess any evil power and isn't possessed by a demon, telling Madison to stay away. Madison immediately pulls the girl into her arms and gently comforts her, telling her she knows she's afraid, but she doesn't need to be anymore. She promises to take Gur somewhere she can eat bread and wheat porridge every day without ever going hungry, to sleep in a soft bed and never endure the wind and rain again. She swears she won't allow anyone to hurt her, that they were not born into this world simply to suffer, and awakening their power does not mean they deserve to be burned alive. Meanwhile, the great bandit Borg finds Dick, the traitor knight, and informs him that Roman has entered the mountains. Borg desperately tries to convince Dick to join forces with him and kill Roman before the new lord can destroy the peace of the mountains, but Dick immediately rejects the proposal, warning that Borg will only get everyone killed. Borg angrily accuses him, saying both of them have stained their hands with the blood of evil dragons. He's fighting for everyone living on this land, while Dick is choosing to stand aside and do nothing. Dick has no desire to continue arguing with this madman, asking if Borg really believes he can easily kill an heir of House Armorbreak. Even if he succeeds, Grand Duke Armorbreaker's fury will wipe Sige town off the map. He warns Borg that if he repeats the same mistake, he'll get everyone killed again, and this time there will be nowhere to run. But Borg refuses to give up, saying he's not insane. He'll drive the monsters into a frenzy and make sure that Noble dies here. Meanwhile, Madison finally manages to calm Gur down, promising to teach her how to understand and control the arcane power within her so she can become a capable witch. Only when Gur is surrounded by other witches will she no longer be treated like something unnatural, because witches never harm their own companions. But Gur remains terrified, saying the church will burn her and her family alive. She can't let the church authorities capture her, and she's never left this place before. She begs Madison to just leave her alone. When Madison realizes that reasoning with Gur won't work, she firmly declares that the girl must leave with her today. Gur is extremely skilled at reading other people's intentions, so she immediately realizes that Madison plans to take her by force. Yet she is too frightened to resist the mysterious witch. At that moment, a deep and prolonged bellow echoes through the mountains, as though some dangerous creature is rapidly approaching. Meanwhile, the hunters lead Roman to the home of Garin, the dirty doctor. Roman notices several religious emblems dedicated to the gods inside the room and asks whether Garin once belonged to the church. Since he has already left the church, Roman invites him to enter his service instead. Garin calmly replies that the church teaches servants of the gods must worship him for the rest of their lives. He may have left the church, but he has never lost his faith in the god. Roman has no desire to waste someone capable of using divine healing magic, but Garin only wants to remain in the mountains and live out the rest of his life in peace. Suddenly, a piercing scream resembling a pig being slaughtered echoes across the distant mountain. The entire forest immediately erupts into chaos as countless monsters begin rampaging, and their roars thunder through the wilderness. Moore trembles uncontrollably and screams that they need to leave immediately. But Roman has no intention of running away. Instead, he orders the militia to form a defensive line. At that moment, a massive brown bear nearly 10 feet tall climbs over the hillside, charging on all fours at a terrifying speed. It crosses almost 100 feet of sloping ground in only 4 or 5 seconds. The guards hurriedly raise their shields and form a staggered defensive line, but the enormous bear reaches them almost instantly. Aaron immediately steps forward and slams his shield directly into the bear's incoming paw. But the beast's strength is far beyond anything they expect, and it sends Aaron flying backward with a single strike. Roman lets out a thunderous roar, steps forward, and swings the armor-breaker great bow from his back, smashing it directly into the bear's skull. The heavy blow leaves the enormous beast dazed, but the intense pain also drives it into an even greater frenzy. The experienced hunters have already scattered around the area, and they seize the opportunity to release a volley of arrows. However, their short bows lack power, while their poorly made arrowheads cannot inflict any meaningful damage. Roman raises the armor-breaker great bow and aims an arrow fitted with a finely forged metal head at the bear. The arrow tears through the air before piercing flesh and driving its terrifying force deep into the beast's body. Grim and Aaron immediately rush forward and deliver the final blows to the heavily wounded bear. Nearly every part of this enormous beast is extremely valuable. Its gallbladder and heart can rapidly strengthen an ordinary person's body and even cure certain illnesses, making them especially expensive. Dota steps forward to inspect the corpse, but his expression immediately changes after detecting a strange odor. Dota reports the truth without hesitation. He can smell beastant grass. This plant drives wild animals into a frenzy, and the only person capable of doing this is the great bandit Borg. Roman immediately realizes that someone is deliberately targeting, and he has no intention of allowing any of them to escape. Meanwhile, Madison is leading Gur quickly through the mountain forest. During their escape, they encounter an enormous mountain stag. Although the creature weighs nearly 900 pounds, it cannot withstand Madison's blade and witchcraft and is quickly brought down. But the sight terrifies Gur, who begs Madison to leave, saying she'll only bring her misfortune. Madison continues trying to reassure her, saying this isn't her fault, that they all experience something similar, and one day she'll be able to control this power. She tells Gur that many witches live in the witch forest, and some of them are far stronger than she is. They have many companions, and one of their sisters will be able to help suppress and stabilize her power. She begs Gur to come with her. But Gur has already suffered a complete emotional breakdown, saying she doesn't understand anything Madison is saying, that she's not her sister, and asking why Madison came into the mountains looking for her, and why she's so determined to take her away. After one disaster after another, Madison finally loses her patience, and coldly declares that even if she has to use force, she's taking Gur with her today. At that moment, the nearby bushes begin to rustle. A calm knight carrying a shield steps into view, and Aaron interrupts without emotion, saying he's afraid she won't be able to do that. Meanwhile, Dota curiously asks whether Grim is powerful enough to defeat the great bandit Borg. Grim knows that Borg is a rank 3 or rank 4 transcendent, but he is not afraid to fight. Elsewhere in the forest, Aaron encounters the witch Madison while patrolling the area. Madison possesses supernatural power of her own and has no reason to fear Aaron. She even claims to have personally killed a rank 5 battle knight, but Aaron remains completely uncompromising because his lord has ordered that no one be allowed to leave. Even if obeying that command costs him his life, he will never defy Roman's order. When further discussion proves useless, Madison prepares to force her way through, but an overwhelming sense of danger suddenly spreads across her entire body. Roman has already drawn the armor-breaker great bow, and its gleaming arrowhead is aimed directly at Madison. However, Madison quickly regains her composure and asks if Roman truly intends to attack a witch from the witch forest. Roman answers without the slightest restraint, saying everything within this territory is his property, and she is trying to take Gur away. She is attempting to steal something that belongs to him. Madison becomes so furious that she laughs, saying if he is willing to accept a witch as one of his subjects, then surely he won't object when every witch from the witch forest comes here to live. The obvious threat in her words immediately enrages Roman. He coldly declares that no one has the right to take a single person away from Sige Town. His people will remain inside his territory. That is not open for negotiation. He asks if she's truly confident that she can kill everyone here, then why hasn't she attacked? Afterward, everyone will simply assume that monsters tore them apart. At that moment, a wolf's howl echoes from deep within the mountains, instantly breaking the tense confrontation between them. The howls erupting one after another make it clear that they are not facing one or two wolves, but an entire pack. A single monster-class wolf is not especially dangerous, but a coordinated pack of them can easily become a deadly threat. Madison instinctively prepares to escape with Gur, but Roman immediately blocks her path. Gur is a witch with immense potential, and he refuses to let her go. Roman's voice becomes as cold as a blade as he warns that if she tries to take Gur away, he will kill her. Madison is confident that she can escape alone, but she cannot guarantee Gur's safety if they flee together. To keep Gur alive, Madison suppresses her fury and reluctantly agrees to remain. Roman stays calm in the face of danger and orders Eren to move Gur to the rear of the formation, warning that anyone who attempts to flee is to be killed on sight. He then positions the shield-bearing guards at the front, using their shield wall to slow the wolves and prevent the defensive line from being shattered. As the pack closes in, Roman knows there is nowhere left to run. Their only chance of survival is to fight with everything they have. He immediately notices that the guards' morale is beginning to collapse. Even the experienced hunters are growing nervous because this is their first time confronting an entire pack of monsters head-on. Roman roars that they must not retreat, that anyone who steps back dies, and orders them to kill every last one of these beasts. The wolves move as swiftly as the wind and reach the group within moments. Instead of charging directly into the shield wall, they use their incredible speed and mobility to attack from both flanks. Roman draws the armor-breaker great bow. He's been tracking the wolves and waiting for an opening from the moment they appeared. With a thunderous twang, an arrow explodes from the bowstring. Roman aims for the wolf's torso, but the arrow strikes its rear leg instead. The overwhelming force tears straight through the limb and sends the beast crashing to the ground. At that moment, another wolf suddenly lunges from the right flank. Madison leaps into the air and delivers a flying kick wrapped in black mist, violently interrupting the ferocious wolf's attack. At the same time, Roman is attacked by another wolf. Although he immediately turns the armor-breaker great bow sideways like a shield and traps the wolf's head between the bowstring and the frame, the wolf still opens its enormous jaws and bites deep into Roman's rib. Enduring the pain, Roman twists the great bow with brute force and uses its incredibly durable string to sever the wolf's neck. After dropping the corpse from beneath his arm, Roman surveys the battlefield and finds Madison fighting two wolves at once. While the rest of the pack has already scattered his guards and hunters, several arrows are embedded in every wolf, but none of the wounds are fatal. The pain only makes the beasts more vicious, and 5 or 6 guards have already fallen. Roman knows that if this continues, the entire unit will be slaughtered. Injured wolves only become more ferocious, while injured humans rapidly lose their ability to fight. At that moment, a long howl echoes from the distance, and Roman realizes that the alpha wolf has never appeared on the battlefield. Nearby, Eren slams his heavy shield down on a wolf and pins it to the ground while preparing to escort Roman to safety. But at that exact moment, the distant alpha suddenly releases a miserable howl of pain. Roman immediately realizes that someone has attacked the alpha, while the rest of the pack begins showing signs of retreat. As the wolves attempt to escape, a figure suddenly charges into their path. The stranger swings a long sword and effortlessly cuts down the first retreating wolf. Roman immediately recognizes the newcomer as Dick, the traitor knight, with the military deserter Jet following close beside him. Jet appears uncertain when he first sees Roman, but ultimately lowers his head and respectfully greets the new lord. Roman immediately extends an offer to both men, telling them to come and serve him. Dick answers with a desolate expression, saying he is Dick the betrayer, a lord killer who murdered the man he served. There is no place for him anywhere on this continent. Roman remains completely unconcerned and says he will give him a place. After hesitating for a long time, Dick ultimately refuses Roman's invitation. Madison suddenly interrupts them, saying she helped them defeat the entire wolf pack and asking if Roman can let Gur leave with her now. Roman gives her an irritated look and asks when he ever agreed to that. Madison firmly declares that she will take Gur away no matter what. After considering the situation, Roman replies that since neither of them intends to back down, they should let Gur decide for herself. At that moment, another group arrives in the forest. Moore has hurried back with reinforcements, but he is still too late. The battle has already ended and wolf corpses cover the ground, revealing just how brutal the fighting was. Roman is standing unharmed in the middle of the battle. Although his body is covered in blood, he does not appear to have suffered any serious injury. But when Moore sees 2 witches standing at the scene, he looks as though his entire mind has shattered. With everyone's attention focused on her, Gur is placed under an unbearable amount of pressure. In the end, Gur quietly says that she only wants to return home. Madison looks deeply at Gur before closing her pitch-black eyes and asking Roman how he intends to treat Gur from now on. Roman realizes how much his answer matters to Madison, so he responds solemnly that he will enter into a noble covenant. He swears upon the name of Armor Breaker that Gur will never face any form of persecution within his territory. Even if the church discovers her existence, he will never compromise. As long as she swears loyalty to him and never betrays him, he will protect her unconditionally for the rest of her life, and never allow her to suffer humiliation or betrayal. Madison is stunned that Roman is willing to enter a noble covenant for the sake of a wit. Once such a covenant is established, a noble can never violate its term, or the king has the right to confiscate all of his land and property. Madison eventually smiles helplessly and says if he had made that promise earlier, she might not have fought him over Gur. Roman lazily asks why she doesn't work for him as well. Life is difficult for witches, isn't it? The church's hunters force them to hide wherever they go, so she might as well remain in his territory. But Madison gives him a cold snort and says that situation will change very soon. Roman immediately becomes alert, realizing that her words conceal something important. Madison also realizes that she has revealed too much and prepares to leave, telling Roman to just take good care of Gur. If she ever learns that Gur has been mistreated, she will never forgive him. She tells him to remember her name. She is Madison, the Nightmare Witch. By then, Eren has nearly finished clearing the battle. 3 guards were killed while 8 were injured. 4 of them are in critical condition and one may never be able to fight again. Roman immediately looks toward the distant forest and wonders how Grimm is doing. Meanwhile, Grimm is still pursuing the great bandit Borg. After studying the tracks left behind, Dota determines that they are about to catch up with their target. But at that moment, Borg suddenly charges out of the bushes. Grimm reacts instantly and raises his long sword to block the incoming attack. Both men are powerful transcendents and neither side can gain a decisive advantage at first. The sound of their violent battle soon reaches Roman, so he immediately leads the others toward it. As the fight continues, Borg's strength as a high-ranking transcendent gradually overwhelms Grimm. Fortunately, Roman's group arrives in time. The moment Borg sees Roman, he roars "Evil Dragon" and immediately abandons Grimm, charging straight toward Roman. Roman draws the Armor Breaker great bow and fires an arrow at Borg, but Borg swiftly dodges the shot, brandishing his battle axe. Borg roars that he'll use this axe to take the head of an evil dragon like Roman. Roman becomes curious, asking why Borg calls him an evil dragon and why he's so determined to duel him. Borg answers with absolute conviction, saying Roman has no sharp claws, yet he possesses vast stretches of land. He has no bat-like wings, yet he stands above everyone else. He cannot breathe fire or thunder, yet every person on this land fears his power. Who could resemble an evil dragon more than him? With Dick's explanation, Roman learns that has Northman blood. The savage Northmen worship strength and do not fear death, causing piracy to flourish throughout the northern seas. 150 years ago, the Northmen pirates suffered a devastating defeat at the hands of the conqueror, but only a few decades later, they returned and plunged the coastline into war once again. Legends of dragons have existed on this continent for generations. The most recent confirmed encounter occurred 150 years ago when the first Grand Duke Armor Breaker fired an arrow through the scales of a red dragon. Since then, dragons have seemingly vanished from the continent, but they remain active across the distant sea. Only the largest and strongest ships can reach the islands where dragons live, giving the Northmen occasional chances to witness them. Since Borg was raised on northern legends, it is hardly surprising that he views Roman as an evil dragon. Roman turns toward Borg and tells him he is only repeating the past, that he cannot save. Borg stands safely on the shore while trying to rescue people trapped in a swamp, but the harder he pulls, the deeper they sink until the darkness of that swamp drags him down with. That is the curse of human nature. Borg raises his enormous battle axe and says he'll use Roman's corpse to break that curse and let everyone climb over him to reach the shore. Roman has no interest in arguing any further. He takes Eren's shield and Grimm's great sword before formally accepting the self-proclaimed Dragon Slayer's duel. Borg's fighting spirit surges as he releases a commanding roar, telling his followers to charge with him. Under everyone's watchful gaze, the two men collide head-on. The brutal and exhilarating battle continues for more than 10 minutes, but the bandit who claims he will kill every evil dragon in the world gradually begins to run out of stamina. Roman immediately seizes the opening and swings his greatsword, cutting straight through the shaft of Borg's battle axe. He then drives a powerful kick into Borg and sends him flying. At that moment, Borg feels as though he has fallen into a freezing ocean. He cannot breathe. His vision begins to blur, and an unprecedented cold spreads throughout his body. He continues sinking deeper, descending toward an ocean floor that grows darker and colder with every moment. Meanwhile, Madison deliberately avoids the crowd and makes her way alone to the docks of Sige Town. She tells Mori that she met Roman Armor Breaker and found him reasonably trustworthy, meaning they can safely return here more often in the future. Mori says nothing more and simply motions for Madison to board the ship. His merchant fleet then leaves Sige Town and sails north along the Burrow River. High above them, an enormous eagle spreads its wings and surveys the land with razor-sharp eyes. Madison looks up at the giant eagle eagle and speaks first, saying she failed to bring their sister from Sage Town with, but Roman entered into a noble covenant to protect. The eagle answers in a human voice, saying when the oracle witch observed this region through her magic mirror, she discovered that the witch here possesses the aura required to become a high-rank witch. Yet Madison failed to bring her back. Madison calmly replies that the child named Gur controls the powers of misfortune and fortune. She may prove useful in other ways, but she is not suited for combat. The eagle warns her that the god-slaying operation is approaching, and the power of even one high-rank witch cannot be underestimated. But Madison immediately responds, asking if the eagle wants Gur to die before she has even lived, if it's planning to send her to her death. She's weak, frightened, and helpless. She cannot even become a proper fighter right now. Unable to change Madison's mind, the eagle reluctantly nods and says it only hopes this is not Madison's sympathy overwhelming her judgment. Madison then asks why the eagle came to find her personally, saying the beast witch should have far more important matters to handle. The beast witch explains that the oracle witch discovered a new sister has awakened in the northern lands. Her aura is stronger than anything the oracle witch has ever witnessed, making her an unprecedented miracle who may become the main force of the god's operation. Every sister capable of traveling there has already departed. Madison immediately realizes the true reason and asks if the church's bastards are moving too. She has guessed correctly. The beast witch continues, saying they must have sensed something as well. According to the oracle witch, the church has dispatched a rank 6 Dawn Knight named Curtain and 50 demon hunting knights. That is why she had come to assist Madison. She reminds Madison how important the god's operation is to them and that they must secure that sister. Madison asks no further questions and leaps directly onto the giant eagle's back. The eagle spreads its wings and launches into the sky, carrying Madison toward the distant horizon. Meanwhile, Roman stands on a high hillside and watches Mori's merchant fleet sail away from Sage Town. He silently considers 3 words: witches, merchants, and the church. Roman intends to reshape this world according to his own will and ideals. He does not care how much blood the common people must shed, how many lives they must sacrifice, how many nobles must die, or whether the king himself is forced to kneel before a guillotine. Even the divine authority standing above humanity will eventually be crushed beneath the iron march of an unstoppable new age. Roman will prove that he can use his strength alone to rebuild and strengthen the entire continent. Today marks Roman's 10th day in Sage Town. Although the newly established Origin estate remains extremely primitive, he is completely confident about its future. Sitting at the table with Roman are Aaron, Grimm, and Gur. Although Gur chose to return home, Roman is not foolish enough to release the young witch completely. For now, remaining at the Origin estate is the safest option. Gur sits nervously at the table. She desperately wants to eat, but she is too afraid to touch anything without permission. Noticing how distracted she is, Roman asks how old she is. Gur nervously counts on her fingers before quietly answering that she is 11 years old. Roman only asked her age to begin a conversation and ease her anxiety. He tells her that he is the lord of this territory, and from now on she is his personal attendant. That means she will remain by his side, and whatever he eats, she may eat as well. He tells her to go ahead and have her breakfast. Gur doesn't understand what a personal attendant is, but she clearly understands that she is finally allowed to eat. Seth frowns and prepares to teach her proper table manners, but Roman stops him, saying this child has spent too long fearing starvation. They can correct her manners gradually. After breakfast, Roman leads the others into Sage Town to inspect the ongoing work. As the familiar town draws closer, Gur becomes increasingly anxious about returning home. Mor immediately comes forward to welcome Roman and introduces Had Nova and Simon Nova, the parents of Gur. But the moment the couple sees Roman and Gur, they drop to their knees and beg for mercy, saying that Demon is not their daughter and begging him not to burn them. Gur's eyes initially light up, but after hearing her father desperately deny their relationship, her expression immediately darkens again. Roman coldly declares that Gur is now his personal attendant, and from this day forward, they will treat her presence as though they were standing before him. Had is overjoyed by Roman's declaration, but Simon suddenly speaks up, saying a witch came to see her 2 days ago. Roman is not surprised and simply orders the couple to tell no one about the encounter. The two hurriedly leave as though fleeing for their lives. But before walking away, Simon turns back and gives Gur one final look filled with complicated emotion. Gur watches her mother leave with obvious reluctance and asks Roman if he truly still wants to keep her by his side when she is someone who brings misfortune. Roman merely smiles and says what misfortune. From his perspective, she possesses the power of good fortune. Anyone else in her position would have died in those mountains long ago. People who live in poverty are especially sensitive to anything associated with bad luck. Only after Roman patiently explains his reasoning does Gur finally begin to relax. Roman then arrives at the blacksmith's forge, where 8 or 9 workers are busily hammering iron ingots. After entering the blacksmith, young Roman and the little girl walked in and Roman said straight up, "Rex, these aren't enough. You need to forge more heavy plows as soon as possible." The bearded blacksmith replied with a quick, "Yes, Lord, will do my best." Then Roman put his hand on the blacksmith's shoulder and told him to add half a kilo of wild boar meat to both lunch and dinner for all the blacksmith workers, and if it wasn't enough, to substitute with other meat. After saying that, an officer came over, and Roman asked him if he was in charge of arranging the distribution of the meat hunted in the mountains the other day. The officer answered, "Yes, Lord Feudal Lord." Roman pointed and ordered him to send the 6 draft oxen and the 3 already built heavy plows to the field ridges, because he wanted to test the plows that afternoon. The scene changed to the wide field outside of town. Young feudal lord and his people were passing the farmland, and a few farmers spotted them. They were confused, wondering what the feudal lord was doing and why he even brought a knight. They also noticed that girl from so-and-so's family was with them. Along the way, the red-haired knight asked the yellow-haired knight if he wanted to bet. The yellow knight said he bet Roman was going to plow the fields later. But the red-haired knight got annoyed and said he was no fun like this, always saying everything he wanted to say. The yellow one insisted on not betting anymore, and the red-haired one shouted with anger that it was boring. The sun was shining bright on the path. Young Roman stopped and started checking the soil. After observing for a bit, he declared that the field was very fertile and they should start from here. After he said those words, the tools were prepared, and then the Lord himself started plowing. He shouted to 2 of his guards, ordering them to plow 1,000 meters east from there, then 1,300 meters straight north. The Red Knight thought to himself that he was a dignified warring knight doing farm work, but the yellow one agreed on the spot. The young girl watched them struggling and exclaimed that the feudal lord was actually plowing the field himself. The yellow one told her to stop her mumbling for a bit because the feudal lord had his own reasons. The red one choked, saying he accepted it quite fast. The yellow one, while plowing, asked what else they could do, encouraged him to oppose the feudal lord. The red-haired one fell silent for a while. Young Roman was watching from far away, and even the little girl was joyful, jumping all over. Roman thought to himself that farming the land well was his first step to changing the world. This was perfect. Seeing the red one coming too fast, young Roman shouted that if he didn't finish it that morning, he wasn't allowed to eat lunch. The red one muttered that man is iron, food is steel. Their rice bowls were in his hands, so better just do it. Transcendents could also have their strength worn away by hunger. Borg starved for 20 years and couldn't even beat a tiger. Dick and Jet, who went into the mountains, were also seeing their strength decline. The red one told the yellow one that following other feudal lords meant big fish, large chunks of meat, and unlimited white bread. Wasn't it too miserable for a warring knight to be reduced to going down to the fields to plow? After that, they went to work and Roman came to watch them. Just then, the little girl asked what she could do, but Roman responded by telling her to stay there and not run around. Internally, he was thinking that bringing her out today was purely for fun. Once her nutrition was restored, the good days were still to come. More than an hour later, the system gave him planting experience +3. Roman wasn't tired at all, saying he plowed over 1,300 meters, not bad, while obviously sweating. After the work was done, he said, "Let's wrap up and rest for a bit." They would continue after having lunch. The red one was disappointed because he thought he shouldn't be doing this job, asking if they still had to continue. But the yellow one was obedient and always agreed with the Lord. The scene changed, and one of Roman's men put a report on the table and said he thought it was necessary for Roman to take a look at the financial situation of Sige Town. After reviewing it carefully, Roman thought, right off the first night, boring. He then said finances were truly a mess. The mustache man agreed, saying, "Isn't it though?" Moore, a dignified agricultural officer, didn't even know the population size of Sige Town. Of course, it could also be intentional. He only knew to keep the farmers from starving to death, force them to have more children and farm more land, to harvest more grain, and use the grain to exchange for more money. When necessary, he would even lend them grain during difficult periods for the farmers, letting them survive the crisis. Seth looks at the accounts and points out what's written there. The records show that 100 caddies of rye were lent to the Nova family, 150 caddies were returned after the autumn harvest, and another 100 caddies are still due next year. He asks how accounts can be kept like this. After hearing the explanation, Roman says that even usury has appeared and orders Seth to go call more over. Seth bows and agrees with the Lord's decision. A moment later, Seth returns with more, who doesn't understand why he was called and even says that this lowly one is here. Roman, however, simply continues writing the document without looking at him and says the previous accounts are written off completely. He explains that because he has taken back all the land, those peasants who owe grain definitely won't be able to pay it back. Then he looks at Moore and tells him to stop haggling over every ounce. Moore just stammers, yes, they will do as he says. The Lord then tells Sains that from now on, he will manage Sagetown's finances. Sains replies that this is exactly the problem he wanted to discuss with him, afraid they are going to go bankrupt by winter. He explains that the expenses for the guards and stewards are huge, especially the stewards. The treasury has to issue thousands of caddies of wheat every year, with miscellaneous grains and meat calculated separately, and the total wages reach up to 8 gold coins, which is equivalent to over 14,000 caddies of wheat. Plus, the problem is that they can't come up with this year's wages for the winter. Roman overthrew the old production system, and grain cannot be sold externally in the short term. It will be good enough if no one starves to death this year. He adds that if they cannot sell grain, they cannot pay their wages, and that's not even counting the salaries for Grimm, Aaron, and himself. Adding the hiring fees for craftsmen like Rex and Vitch, their pressure is even greater. But Roman calmly says it's just this little matter. Sains worries and tells him to consider it carefully, not to treat his words as a joke. But Roman isn't taking his words as a joke and tells him not to panic. Roman turns his attention back to Moore and asks why the wages and benefits for stewards are so high, questioning if they could all be his relatives, brothers, and sisters. Moore trembles, cold sweat dripping on his forehead, saying this lowly one deserves death. Roman says he understands the general situation and orders that the benefits of all stewards be cut a bit. 1 silver coin, 100 caddies of wheat, and 300 caddies of miscellaneous grains per year, with no meat. Tax exemptions are completely revoked for now. He asks if Moore has any objections. Moore grins and awkwardly smiles, saying what Lord Roman says goes. Internally, he thinks at least it didn't cut into his own, but his uncles, brothers, and sisters will definitely be furious. Then Roman says if anyone has a problem, have them come find him. Moore bows deeply, saying he obeys the command, Lord Roman. Roman reflects that the Mabos family is merely a thin vine attached to the great tree that is the Riven Armor family. Without the Mabos family, he is still the feudal lord. But without the feudal lord, the Mabos family would just be commoners. Everyone knows perfectly well who bestows power. Roman asks what the current situation is of the guards who died in battle yesterday. Moore replies that following his orders, the families of the fallen received 5 silver coins, 40 caddies of meat, and 80 caddies of wheat. The families of the severely wounded received 2 silver coins, 15 caddies of meat, and 40 caddies of wheat. The lightly wounded also received 10 to 50 caddies of wheat. His mercy and generosity have already spread throughout Sagetown. Roman says to assemble all the guards capable of moving. He wants Aaron to train them for 3 hours every day. Everyone saw the situation yesterday. Their military discipline is extremely low. Roman thoughtfully says this time he could pay out of his own pocket to compensate the casualties. But if a large swath of people is killed or injured every time they encounter such a situation, sooner or later their Sagetown will die until not a single person is left. He asks if it can be done. Aaron immediately says that although he's never been an instructor, he will definitely work hard to carry out the feudal lord's command. Roman mentions that additionally, tell them that from now on, guards will receive 2 copper coins every month, 10 caddies of wheat, 10 caddies of miscellaneous grains, and 2 caddies of meat. Moore asks if they should issue them wages, internally thinking that the wages are too little and it won't be enough to support a person. Then the idea of monthly wages hits Moore. Sains explains to the Lord that guards are conscripts. Unless there's a war, they normally don't have wages. Giving them some physical goods as compensation is already a merciful act. Roman understands and says they will be issued every month, but he has standards for them. If they cannot meet the standards he sets, then he will kick them out of the guard ranks. For guards who perform well, he will also reward them additionally. Then he adds that they should incorporate the hunters into the guard ranks as well. He appoints Dota to be the captain of all the guards and tells them to have him come down the mountain as soon as possible. After a while, Sains asks Roman if he still hasn't solved the winter bankruptcy problem. Roman says he knows and that before spring ends, he will solve this problem. Sains nods and follows his words. Sains adds that there's one more thing. Roman shouldn't always make himself look so disheveled. His trouser legs are covered in mud, his collar is a mess, and his shirt buttons should be fastened properly. It's too inelegant. Sains fixes the Lord's clothes, while Roman internally thinks he's more like his old man than his old man. Early in the morning, a group of people gather at the field and Roman, wearing his work clothes, shows everyone how to use the plowing tools and tells them to watch closely. The people are amazed, shouting that the Lord's plow is so wide and large, it actually doesn't require stepping on with feet. They shout that the stones are coming out. Even arm-thick tree roots have been pulled out. Look, the black soil has been turned up. Roman looks at his people and says next, following his operations, they will deep plow all the land he has enclosed. The people are obedient and all agree. Then they start learning under the Lord's lessons. Roman internally thinks the heavy plow is heavier and slower, requiring 2 draft oxen to pull, deep plowing half a meter wide each time. 2 draft oxen can plow about 6 mu a day. which is why they must choose flat and broad land for concentrated operations. Then he sits on the chair still thinking it will take another 7 days to finish building 40 heavy plows. For now, they can only use them as they are produced. They cannot wait. Fully equipped, 2,000 mu can be plowed in 10 days. In short, they must try to complete the deep plowing within the next 13 days. Just then, Moore comes with a meal for the Lord, saying he's worked hard and offering some hot tea. Roman thanks him. Moore adds that he dares not accept his thanks. This is what this lowly one should do. He reports that Town's total labor force is around 1,100 to 1,200, with only a little over 700 available for use. The unavailable ones maintain the town's basic operations. Aside from plowing, composting is the most crucial. The majority of people have been sent to collect manure, which is estimated to wrap up in 3 days. Deep plowing is merely the foundation. The subsequent sowing and fertilizing are highly critical. By then, the manure fertilizer will be mostly fermented properly. Rushing the spring season is akin to fighting against the heavens for time. After planting is completed, at least 4/5 of the labor force can be freed up during the spring and summer. Freeing them from heavy field labor, this is his true goal. Internally, Roman thinks, however, he can't tell these peasants that only 2,000 mu will be planted during this year's spring plowing. If they found out, a riot would likely occur. In this era where grain is life, peasants maintain extreme caution, as any mishap could be fatal. However, he does not plan to back down. If necessary, he will directly suppress any unrest. Even if 100 peasants die, exchanging that for order and development is, in his view, a worthwhile trade. Then Roman says he's going to cut down trees in a while and he'll leave the recent plowing matters for Moore to supervise, asking if he can handle it well. Moore stammers that he will definitely work hard. Moore thinks to himself that besides farming, he even cuts trees himself. He really can't understand this lord. The scene cuts to Roman taking an axe from his house and leaving, and Gur waves her hand and shouts, "Feudal lord, wait, please."
Lord Roman turned around and asked, "What are you following me for?" And the little girl replied, "Didn't the Lord say I'm your personal attendant?" So our boy answered, "That's true, then come along." And the girl shouted happily, "Okay." And off they went to the Origin Manor's north vegetable patch, where the forest stood quiet and still. Roman started chopping trees, and as he did, the system fed him experience points, but after a while he grew tired and sweat dripped down his face, and as he looked out at the forest he noticed something, then shifted his attention to the ground and said, "The pine needles are semi-decomposed, forming pine needle soil about 10 centimeters thick, rich in nutrients that can serve as a nearby fertilizer source. So this will be enough for the vegetable fields and there's no need to haul fertilizer from the town anymore, which is quite convenient." Just then the girl interrupted his focus, saying, "Lord Roman, this is for you," and with a happy face as she extended her hand, she said, "It's hazelnuts." So Roman cracked the outer shell with his axe and after eating a bit said, "The taste is excellent, crisp and fragrant, aren't you going to eat?" And the girl answered, "I used to eat a lot of them back in the mountains." So Roman thanked her by patting her on the head, and the little girl, all happy, said, "You're welcome." And Roman said, "I'll continue chopping trees," and she replied, "Okay." Time passed, and in the forest the main character looked at his system and said, "Gained 10 gathering EXP. Then he waved his hand and shouted, "Gwen, the task is complete, let's go home." And the girl nodded, "Okay." The scene changed to dinner ready on the table, and along the table the main character tossed tea to the girl, who said, "Thank you, Lord." And then Seath spoke up, saying, "Lord, some peasants came to me today hoping you would distribute land to them as soon as possible, even if the tax is raised from 50% to 60%, they can accept it." The main character asked, "Why should I distribute the land to them? Such fertile land in their hands would only be slightly better than a wasteland." And Seath said, "They say you violated the land rent contract," which made the main character pause and he asked, "So what if I violated it? Why don't they go find the King of Black Iron to sanction me?" Then he declared, "The contract is a shadow of the previous lord, and on this land, only my rules remain." Seath said, "I still hope to advance steadily, intensively cultivating 100 mu first and expanding once we see the results, rather than being so radical, which could easily lead to a backlash." But the main character simply answered, "We'll talk when the backlash comes." And Seath just sighed. Night fell and the sun rose, and on the way to the field the main character said, "Gwen, let's continue chopping trees today." And he gathered more EXP by chopping tree after tree until he grew tired, and Gwen brought a piece of cloth for wiping the sweat, and he noted, Today we accumulated a total of 20 gathering EXP. We are still 80 points away from upgrading, and gathering is related to quarrying and mining. So he needs to level up all his life skills to level 2 first. Suddenly someone came running toward him, shouting, "Lord, feudal lord, something's happened." And Seth yelled, "Are you trying to rebel? Stop it, all of you." As a very large crowd gathered to face the lord of their land, and the main character shouted, "What are you trying to do?" And someone in the crowd with a worried look said, "Lord, feudal lord, we wish for the land to be distributed, but the feudal lord isn't someone you can mess with, and he simply does not allow it."
The town people are saying that he has given them too little land to farm and they need more. And to that, Roman asked how much fertilizer they piled up today, how much land they plowed, and if they used Rax's new heavy plow. And the mustache man replied and begged him to show mercy because they really couldn't see any hope of surviving. And our boy asked angrily, tell him how he could make them obey him. And the town people went quiet in despair and silence. And even Sanes thought that the feudal lord was really angry, and he had a bad feeling about this. Just then one of the town people shouted that he took back all the land, breaking the agreement, and peasants cannot leave the land just like he and knights cannot leave white bread. And he said he had already promised that he would no longer collect land tax from now on, and he had a way to feed them. He only needed them to obey, and that was all he had to say. And the farmer asked how 2,000 mu of land could feed everyone, and our guy thought for a while coldly. Then with a cold stare down at the people replied that they were questioning him and destroying themselves. And he told them to get out now, and he could still pardon their insolence. And the town people shouting that they could not leave because they hadn't seen the effects of the heavy plow yet, and they trusted their own hands more, and they begged him to give them a way to survive. And he asked if they thought he wanted to starve them to death, and just then something hit the farmer and he said no. He was merciful and he also did physical labor himself, but the total amount of food was limited and sooner or later they would only be able to gnaw bark and eat dirt. And if the food ran out, he could leave but they could not. And he asked seriously if they refused to obey, and the crowd said they just wanted land distribution, and asked if that wasn't right, everyone. And he asked again, even if he said this was enough to keep them from going hungry. And this stupid farmer was really starting to annoy him here because he said the future he spoke of could only be a miracle and they dared not believe it. And even he had enough and said, very well, those who oppose him, take a step forward. And Sanes tried to stop their lord, but that wasn't going to work anyway. And these people, even that mustache farmer, were opposing the lord. Just then he took out the sword from Green swiftly, and with murderous intention, and thought that rather than letting the onlookers learn to obey, it was better to let them learn to remember the price of death. And then without hesitation he stabbed the offenders, and people were in shock, and even the other 2 offenders were let slide. But he unalived them all and red juice spread everywhere. And then he shouted that defying him resulted in this kind of end, and told them to look closely. All of them. And among the crowd someone was shouting and crying that was his father, and he coldly asked what his name was, and he replied Barlow, and holding his dying father, Barlow cried shouting that this was his father Matthew, and he tried to persuade him. And he thought, actually Barlow, the 1-star apostle from the previous gacha pull, and he said Barlow, he hereby appointed him as the agricultural steward to cooperate with Moore in farming that land. And he told him to witness the spectacle his father dared not imagine in his lifetime, for him. And then he shouted that as long as they obeyed, supported and loved him, offering up their humble lives like dust to him, he would protect them forever. And after saying those words, he thrust the sword into the ground, and then he explained that if in any given year he caused even one of them to starve to death, they may draw this sword and pierce his chest. He thought that in modern countries, with a population of over 1 billion, a 1% opposition meant tens of millions of people. But in Sige Town, the total population was less than 2,000, with a labor force of 700 or 800, and the logic between governing a small state with few people and ruling a large country was worlds apart, and he had already considered the worst-case scenario. If someone violently resisted, he would violently suppress them, not holding back even against hundreds of peasants. But that was just the worst-case scenario, because he knew resistance was inevitable, but it didn't have to escalate into a life-and-death struggle. And right now everyone opposed his policies, daring to protest but afraid to die, strong but enduring in mild opposition, however. Those who opposed but not strongly made up more than half. Those who strongly opposed but dared not protest made up more than half of the remainder. Those who dared to protest to his face but were afraid of death made up more than half again, and he asked how many were truly unafraid of death. And according to his plan, it was expected that in 2 more days the deep plowing would be fully completed, and they could enter the sowing phase. And there was nothing more urgent and important than this matter. And those who dared to obstruct would be killed without mercy. This was the 16th day since Roman arrived in Sige Town, and the current results were 100 tons of compost, plus an extra 20 to 30 tons. All iron had been cast into a total of 40 heavy plows, and over 500 laborers were deployed to fully clear the soil of debris. Just then a merchant entered Roman's office and Sains welcomed the guest and showed the way. And our boy asked if he was a salt merchant. And the merchant said not just salt, because the ship also had wool, wine, medicinal herbs, candles, cheese, butter, and there were still over 500 caddies of salt left. And our boy, always straightforward, asked the price. And he said here it was 1 copper coin per caddy, and it got more expensive the further north you went. And in the northern lands or Igor, it could reach 2 to 3 copper coins per caddy. And then he asked about the price of slaves. And the merchant explained that ordinary ones started from 1 silver coin. Those with a strong physique or specialties were 2 to 5 silver coins. Inferior ones were under 8 copper coins, but they were not worth transporting. And he asked if he offered 20 gold coins, how many could he bring, and hearing the offer, the merchant was in shock and replied at least 120. And he happily shouted that was a big deal and wonderful. And he said he would pay him 10 gold coins in advance, and he would pay the remaining 10 after checking their quality. And from now on the commercial tax was 1/20th, and the same went for salt. And he asked if that was acceptable. And the merchant bowed deeply with honor and respect, and said his lordship's reputation for generosity would surely resound up and down the Bulow River, and he ordered Sains to fetch the funds. Then the scene goes back to the sword which killed citizens of Sige town, and Green is staring at it, and saying he had seen people providing knights with equipment, but he had never seen anyone taking away a knight's lifeline, and he asked if he wasn't afraid he would defect in battle. And just then our guy showed up and asked Green if he was going for a picnic. But Green was annoyed and asked for his sword back first, and to that, he explained that he was using his talent wrong, and told him to stop swinging that clumsy greatsword, and not to wear heavy armor either because that would restrict even a pig, and a light sword suited him better. And putting his hand on Green's shoulder, he said he wouldn't let him die and he was his blood brother, and he asked how about he compensated him with an adamantine short sword and mithril armor, and this bloody knight had never been on a picnic before. You could guess from his reaction. And he asked if he wanted them and told him to satisfy him first. And Green, happy and laughing, put his hand on his chest and said let him become his sword and shield and offer his life to him. And he waved his hand and said then let's go for a picnic. Then the scene changed to the forest where Gwen was playing outdoors and Green was roasting the fish. And just then he came with fruits and fish again. And he was gaining hunting experience and even cooking experience too. And after cooking some, he tossed some to Gwen first because you know Roman was kind and a gentleman, and he even offered some to his blood knight Green with a warm smile and told him to eat some too, but Green didn't like the food and said even if he Green starved to death, he wouldn't eat this stuff that even pigs despised. But little Gwen was enjoying and eating that food because she was seen as a slave and she wasn't able to eat this kind of food, and this food was a feast to her. And just then Gwen noticed something and looked back. And she saw a wild boar with red blood eyes running towards them with insane speed and destroying everything on its path. And Gwen, afraid, shouted that it was a magical beast, a wild boar, and told them to be careful. But he thought differently and took his bow and aimed at the wild boar and jokingly said perfect timing to hunt a pig for their Lord Green. And the arrows flew with insane speed and accuracy and killed the wild boar on the spot. And from killing the boar, he achieved hunting experience. And he said he could finally stomach some wild boar meat, right? But Green didn't say anything, and he thought if he was holding a grudge for too long. And he was putting out the fire and said their stomachs were full and they should continue their journey. Then the scene changed to the group going up from the mountains with a horse. And in front of him, the system announced that a mine was discovered. And he thought bringing Gwen along was indeed the right choice because they found the mine without taking any detours. And then he helped Gwen get off the horse and they found a huge place and there was a dug-up area like a meteor had landed here. And the party started digging up the ground and they dug up rock salt, and after touching it, he was completely sure it was rock salt, and he said right beneath their feet was a salt mine, and the ore seam was probably very shallow, a few meters to a dozen meters deep, and Green lit up happily and asked if it looked like he was about to get the adamantine short sword and mithril armor he promised, and he looked at him with the side of his eye and stayed silent.
Roman is laying out the ultimate resource management strategy. To transport this rock salt, if cost is no object, clearing a mine transport channel isn't impossible. The mineral vein is shallow, maybe 10 meters deep. It's basically an open-pit salt mine, a total God-given military fund. But there are logistics to consider: clearing obstacles, draining water, building simple bridges, and setting up warning outposts. It'll take over 100 people about 7 to 10 days to break through. They need to divert manpower, but it's totally worth the grind. The sun shines over the mountains. For a territory to develop, it needs resources as a foundation, amplified by labor and production. Salt is just the starting point. If there were no salt, they'd seek other mines. If the mines were poor, they'd hunt beasts and gather fur. Fur doesn't last long, so the next meta is light industry, textiles, breeding, handicrafts, brewing, shipbuilding, and cash crops. No matter the stage, it all consumes one thing: labor. A little girl asks where they're going next. Roman explains they need to explore for more minerals, pushing through 3 mountains. Suddenly, a strange liquid is dripping. Green asks, "Is it coal?" Young Roman shakes his head. It's in the middle of the mountain. The labor consumption would be too great. Not cost-effective. Let's change spots. Just like that, they secure the 3 fundamental sources to unlock his true wealth. Night falls. In the dark forest, Roman is roasting a chicken. Gwen's mouth is practically watering. Meanwhile, Green is complaining. No matter what the ingredients are, they will all be roasted into charcoal by you. This isn't a picnic, it's more like a dark cuisine experiment. Roman offers the roasted chicken anyway, knowing Green will decline. But watching Gwen eat the perfectly roasted bird, the young lord joins in and digs up. He praises himself. It really is quite delicious. See, a person needs to try new things more often. Green just panics. No, I'm perfectly fine as I am now. Honestly, Green's reaction is gold. Dude is so committed to being a picky eater that he'd rather starve than admit Roman's cooking is good. Respect the dedication, even if it's ridiculous. 2 days later, they return to the manor. Seth is hyped. This time we found a salt mine 40 kilometers away from Siggy Town. It's almost an open-pit mine. The coast lacks sunlight, and inland salt production is scarce. Goodness, this is the pillar of our industry. But Roman keeps him grounded. Don't get excited. The salt mine isn't urgent. Sowing seeds tomorrow is the main priority. Discovering it is a huge deal, but in the long run, we might need to invite the Grand Duke to intervene and hold the fort. It's day 19 since Roman arrived in Siggy Town. The people are finally working under his exact instructions. Bury the fertilizer 9 centimeters deep. Cover the seeds by 3 centimeters. For every moo, use 30 caddies of wheat seeds and over 100 caddies of fertilizer. Have you memorized it? The townspeople confirm they've got it locked in. All right, let's get to work. Roman writes down every single detail, never missing a beat. As a reward, Roman cooks dinner himself, grinding some serious culinary XP. Cooking skill upgraded to level 2, milestone unlocked. Chopping melons and cutting vegetables. The peasants are lining up for the young lord's tasty food. Just then, the chubby servant Moore comes in sweating. Our provisions can't hold out much longer. Daily consumption already exceeds 1,000 caddies. If we give them dinner too, it will double. Right at that moment, Roman stops cutting carrots. What's the rush? Call all the merchants here. Moore sweats more and turns back. I'll go do it right away. Scene cuts to Roman's place. 4 merchants are gathered for a meeting. Roman sits calmly in his chair. You are all aware of the grain prices and Siggy Town's annual outward sales volume, right? 2 merchants look at each other, totally clueless. But the bald one explains, annual outward sales volume is 20 to 30,000 caddies. Over 2,200 caddies for 1 gold coin. Roman interrupts. What is the current price of wheat? The silver-haired merchant answers, in the off-season, 1 gold coin is about 1,600 caddies. In the peak season, it's about 2,000. Roman writes it all down, then drops the ultimate whale move. I want 100,000 caddies. Miscellaneous grains, vegetables, and cereals are all acceptable. But I won't give you profits, only wages. Deliver 1,000 caddies, I'll pay 5 copper coins. 10,000 caddies, 5 silver coins. The purchasing capital will be paid to you by Moore. The merchants are stunned for a second, but they understand the assignment, bow respectfully, and leave. Roman sighs. 100,000 caddies is only enough for a month or 2. They have to keep buying. They must start thinking about money immediately, or he'll have to sell the ruby, or worst case, sell the Divine Riven Armor account. Day 21 arrives. They've completed 2,000 mu of deep plowing, row application, and planting. In the fields, peasants look at their hard work, watching the plants grow. To think the fields were reclaimed and planted so quickly. The Lord didn't lie to us. Just then, Barlow, a one-star apostle, appears and bows, asking forgiveness for interrupting. Roman cuts him off. What do you want? Barlow asks if the farming of this public land is finished. Roman confirms this year's spring plowing is done. Barlow suggests, then reclaim new land? While the season is still good, we can rush another few hundred mu. Roman grabs the guy. This year's spring plowing is finished. I have more important things to do. You continue to be the person in charge of the 2,000 mu. I will assign you 100 peasants to tend the plots. Barlow protests, there are not enough hands. Roman replies, I'll allocate more to you, but I won't and can't let more people be tied to death by these fields. Barlow, your mind needs to be active. Don't follow in your father's footsteps. Farming can feed you, but it can only feed you. Barlow stands there, determined. I won't follow in my father's footsteps. Please believe me, Lord. Roman puts a hand on his shoulder. Go on, do your work. Back at the mansion, Seth is fixing the Lord's image. Roman says, Seth, let everyone rest for half a day today. I need to plan the route to the salt mine next. Have everyone go build the road. Seth warns him, Lord, you must also pay attention to your image. Chopping vegetables in the fields for 2 days will make those peasants look down on you. They will forget your majesty and no longer fear you. That is very fatal for a noble. Roman smirks. I'll tell those nobles what is truly fatal. Road conditions and vehicles determine transportation efficiency. They need a solid, durable road, not a muddy dirt path. A craftsman notices the Lord and asks for orders. Roman hands him a piece of paper, a blueprint for how carts can be made. The craftsman checks it. Not difficult. How many do you want? Roman replies, 10 for now. In the future, we'll need 100. Basically as many as possible. Achieving transportation is the most important. The old man instantly grabs his head and shouts, I can't make 10 in the short term. Last time, making plows almost died of exhaustion. Roman immediately offers a solution. Then divide the labor and cooperate. Distribute the work. We need large-scale production. From today on, I'll triple your helpers. Does that seem feasible? The old man replies, that will still take 10 days before the first one comes out. Roman says, no rush. You can take your time to research in the early stage. Will a month be enough? I will give you a gold coin upon completion. The old man instantly lights up. I will do it with all my might. Then Roman drops the ultimate bombshell. You can also train carpenter apprentices. For every qualified carpenter you train, I will give you an equivalent amount of gold coins. By the way, go tell the blacksmith Rax, if he can train qualified blacksmiths, I will also give double or even triple the gold coins. As long as you train 10 carpenters a year, you can get 10 gold coins, up to a limit of 100. The old man's mood skyrockets. He bows respectfully, shouting, my God, I will absolutely obey all of the Lord's commands. He rushes back to work. I'll go prepare the equipment right away. Road construction is a major project, no less than spring plowing. But the people are working their asses off in the field, and they're happy about it. We are paving the road to the salt mine. We will have salt to eat in the future. With salt, we can pickle vegetables and survive the winter. Our Lord is truly capable. Roman orders the workers to hurry up and quarry stones, then burn lime. Earth, wood, stone, and sand are indispensable. Even a layer of gravel is better than a mud road. Alongside them, the young lord is working too. But compared to the peasants and builders, this feudal lord gains EXP from literally everything he does. The system announces, building skill upgraded to level 2, building knowledge unlocked, cement firing, brick making. Just like that, the construction of the road goes perfectly under Roman's orders. For dinner today, Roman prepared the food himself. He even hunted a wild bird to make it happen. Handing it to Moore, Roman says, "Pluck the feathers, we're having an extra meal today." Moore is internally hyped. Our feudal lord is truly becoming more pleasing to the eye. We admire him more and more. Day 30 since Roman arrived at Siggy Town. Today, the weather is heavy rain. Inside his mansion, Roman checks the forecast. Moderate rain today, heavy rain tomorrow. The road construction progress these 2 days will probably have to be suspended. He stretches his hand. Having worked non-stop for a month, taking this opportunity to rest for 2 days isn't bad.